Hey, hey, hello, and welcome. Good morning, Wayne, and everyone else. Hello. It's a Monday, so we're back once again with some. You can't really say that with some A soldier's life. Oh no. With some reading. Anyway. We have raw HP. It didn't make the thingy, but I saw it. Yay! There it is. Thank you so much for the sub, Raw. Welcome, welcome. Welcome in, welcome in. My shadow grows stronger, indeed. Maybe that's what I should have it say. If we're still reading Shadow Slave, I would've. Why did I do that back then? Missed opportunity. But here we are. Puppy is attempting to sleep. We've had a long walk, so hopefully she does. Otherwise, I guess you'll just hear her running around. Goes with my lore. As the one person who read Shadow Slave and deleted all of her videos and make everyone question, what the fuck? Yeah, we're past this. We've moved past. Shadow Slave is a rip. Rip sadness. Rip Shadow Slave. But we have a soldier's life. which is fucking great and very fun as well. Positioning my microphone a bit, and then go into a very short recap because that's all I remember. And turn off the sound on my phone. I almost forgot. Boop. So, quiet. Last time on A Soldier's Life. Everyone is here, except the casualties. Rip whoever they were. Delmar is also growing more suspicious of Eric, even though Castile has apparently told him more about Eric, which I'm not too comfortable with. Not cool. Castile. We talked some more about the summoner. Some more people died outside of the dungeon. Rip. And the summoner has apparently brought his ice dragon, ice drake, ice wyvern into the dungeon. So looking forward to meeting him soon. Meeting him soon, maybe. Final smile. Hello, good morning. Welcome inside this cold abode, which is my apartment. Okay. Right. I think we're gonna finish book 3 today. If I'm not mistaken, I think we'll finish book 3 today. Hella exciting. And I did have book 4. Yay! I checked last time. Because I mentioned last time, I was like, I don't know if I have it. I need to ask. I have it. Easy. But that also means that we kind of, I think, I don't know if book 6 is already out, so I don't know if I can get book 5 yet. So after, depending on how fast you are in book 4, we might have to take a break. A reading break, or find something that we can read in between until he finishes, because we're kind of catching up to him. Slowly. Slowly and steadily. Scary thought. Oh shit! We got a picture of an owl bear, correct? That's what they're called. Owl bear. Or they're called a run, maybe. Have you ever read the beginning after the end? No? I haven't read much. Especially web novels. The only ones you've seen me read, those are the only ones I've fucking read. Like, I swear. Beginning after the end. It's an anime. Manga. I see. Is it also a web novel, or was it a web novel first, or is it just a... It looks like it's a manga. Book first. Oh, okay. I highly assume I would not be allowed to read it if it's on Crunchyroll and shit. Jävlar, holy fuck my life, dude. How many fucking books are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. What the fuck? Maybe some of them are like some other editions, but the hell? Damn. I started reading what is it called? Yeah, I have to look at my phone. They slowly kill it after every adaptation, but the book is good, but read on your own time, maybe. I highly recommend. Ooh, okay. Because currently I am reading. Wait. Something that I got recommended, as in, like, this is the fantasy book. People apparently praise it more than, like, Game of Thrones, and I was like, I've never heard of it before. It is called The Stormlight Archive. That one I'm reading right now. I'm on chapter 4. So far, I'm intrigued. Very intrigued. It seems cool. So I just hope that it continues to be cool. So it's good. I see. Okay. Damn. I will also recommend. I watched 2 nights ago. I watched the Chainsaw Man movie. Reese Arc. Peak movie. So fucking good. I recommend. Highly recommend. The beginning after the end is very good. However, I think this one, A Soldier's Life, is better. Ooh. Competition. Well, I've only read A Soldier's Life, so so far I agree. Okay. We can't even there. Okay then. I don't know, I haven't seen it, but if you drop your top 5 anime, I will watch depending on that. Lol. Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man. JoJo. Uh. Definitely Chainsaw Man. Definitely JoJo. Haven't even finished JoJo myself. Rip me. It's always when I was like, oh, and this, oh, but this one, oh, and this one, and oh, this one. Nee. And I. JoJo 100%. Rewatching it right now. I will not name One Piece. I will never have One Piece as my favorite anime. There's no way. I like One Piece. I have enjoyed watching One Piece. I even enjoy reading One Piece. But enjoyed. But I'm so fucking over that shit. Like, because every time I've never like chosen myself to be like, oh, I want to watch One Piece. It's always someone else who's like pushed it on to me, like One Piece, you know, die hard fans that are like, oh my god, and I was like, okay. So, and I didn't watch it as a child, so it's not growing on me. Like, it wasn't a part of my life. Oh, I love Gintama. Everything I've seen of Gintama, I love. That's also good. That's fair, totally. I watched Fairy Tail as a kid, right? That shit's banger. Can it compete with the majority of the top animes? No. Do I like it and enjoy it and love it? Yes. Pink. I don't know, there's so many. Jojo though, 100%. Okay. Nej. One yawn and then I go. Chapter 176. Run. The Earth Drake yielded a major Earth essence while Maviath watched the corridor. Oh, it's already dead. It died off screen. Maviath helped me drag the Drake's long neck around to face away from the corridor, making it look as if the Drake was sleeping in case someone came by. The reward chest was much smaller this time, so I was not expecting another spear inside. It rattled with coins as I picked it up and carried it behind the Drake. I shattered the stone chest, using the Drake's body to shield my actions. Inside were a few dozen silver coins and a pair of thick brown bracers. Ooh. The soft, flexible leather, covered from wrist to elbow, with laces to tighten them. I let Maviath try them on, but his forearms were too large for them. If these bracers were an artifact, they would neither resize nor absorb ether from me. I sent the bracers to my dimensional storage to figure them out later. With our work in the room complete, Maviath asked, "Are we going to descend and attack the boars again?" I had considered going by myself, but I shook my head. No, we'll just wait until it's time to leave the dungeon. Linus or Benito will forget us when it's time. I slid down the wall to relax in the corridor with Maviath. Maviath smiled brightly. "Do you want to play checkers?" I nodded absently as he set up the board between us. "When will you release Relia?" he asked after winning the third straight game. I hesitated before answering. "When it's safe. It might be some time before I can get away from the company." I reset my pieces on the board, and we continued to pass the time. Hours later, the pounding of boots and the rattle of Legion armor echoed down the corridor. Benito was running full tilt at us, using the wall to slow himself. The summoner was spotted across the owlbear room. Oh my god. Already? Okay. We're leaving now. He turned and sprinted back the way he came, without waiting for a response. Maviath was trying to put the checkers set in the bag. "Leave it, Maviath." "Nah, take it with you. Put it in your dimensional space at least." I pulled him up and we started running back to the safe room. Of course, we were the furthest away and probably the last to be warned. Benito, the little rabbit, was already gone as we raced down the corridor after shouldering our packs. Thoughts raced through my mind. How much would the owlbear slow down the summoner? Would the summoner figure out that we had exited the dungeon? I glanced down the right corridor toward the harpy room. Seeing and hearing no one, I assumed they had already retreated, and we were the last ones left. Wow. Moments later, I saw the small safe room and the legionnaires preparing to enter the exit portal. A piercing screech echoed down the corridor. Castiel's voice cut through the noise with an order. But she's not the screech. Is it the owlbear or the summoner? Probably the owlbear, sadly. "Into the gates. Runic weapons lead. The summoner has controlled the owlbear. It's coming." Oh, right, he can do that. Oh, that's cheating. Clinking red armored men scrambled forward into the exit portal ahead of us. Almost everyone was through when we emerged into the safe room. A hulking, bipedal owl burst into the room from the opposite corridor. Its over-muscled body was incongruent with its massive owl head. The beak alone was as large as a man's head, and when it screeched again, sharp, jagged teeth lined the impressive beak. Castiel's etheric shadow chains swarmed over the creature, trying to contain it, but they snapped like spider threads. Castiel, Adrian, and Colm were the only legionnaires left in the room. "Get through the portal!" I yelled. Not for any heroic reason, but so I could use my abilities without being seen. I have to sneeze, I think. That was correct. Thank you. Castile nodded, understanding my intent. Move! Eric will occupy it with his air shields and follow us momentarily. Sure. Mavid roared his own challenge, and the creature looked confused as Castile, Colm, and Adrian disappeared into the portal. I stepped within range of the owlbear, and it spun toward me. A foreign intelligence burned in its red eyes. The summoner trying to control the feral beast. Wait, so now it's only Castile, Mavieth, and Eric left. I assume. Maybe. Because then no one will, then it's only Castile that will see stuff for the first time, I guess. I stepped within range of the owlbear and it spun toward me. A foreign intelligence, a feral beast. I removed a good portion of its chest cavity, my power overwhelming its resistance. The beast belched a spray of blood at me and charged on all fours. Fuck, I must have missed something vital. Maybe it stepped in front of me, lowering his hammer. The owlbear's powerful beak clamped down just as Maviet's hammer connected. A portion of Maviet's stomach, leather armor, and abdomen were torn away. I pressed my blade into the creature's shoulder as it shooed its reward. Maviet stumbled back, leaking blood and bile from a gaping stomach wound. Oh my fucking god. Drink your potions, I yelled as I twisted my blade and yanked it free. The pain drew the creature's attention to me while Maviet fumbled for his potions. Now I'm scared. Maviet will not die. The owlbear, frothy blood dripping from its beak, stumbled toward me. It was close to death, but I must have hit the lungs instead of the heart. I reached under my armor for the ether potion. I only needed a sip to recover all my ether. The owlbear clumsily lunged toward me in slow motion, giving me plenty of time to sidestep. It was its final act, as the massive creature collapsed. I took a swig of the potion, capped it, and sent it to my dimensional space as my ether core was replenished. I kneeled next to Maviet while scanning the corridor. A large splotch of pink skin denoted his injury, which was slowly turning gray to match the rest of his body. Did you take all your healing potions? I asked, inspecting the wound. A deep dent in his abdomen showed where the owlbear had taken a bite. Maviet nodded painfully. I produced my last greater healing potion and handed it to him. The ether from the previous potions hadn't been enough to repair the extensive damage. Maviet rasped. It's coming. He pointed painfully down the corridor. What's it's? I spun around to see a creature bounding toward us. It must have been the summoner's ice drake. The scales shimmered, appearing like undulating ice as it rushed closer. I wasn't concerned, as I had enough ether to deal with it. Maviet, get into the portal and help the company with the specters. Maviet groaned as he stood unsteadily. He seemed to be missing some musculature, as he had difficulty moving. Hopefully, the greater healing potion would restore the soft tissue. After my sneeze. Oh, sorry. The ice drake skidded to a stop at the entrance, its crystalline eyes showing intelligence as it assessed the situation. Seeing only one legionnaire and a struggling Goliath, the drake paused. So, wait, did Castile leave? I backed up toward the portal, making sure Maviet made it through. The serpentine neck of the drake slowly locked eyes with me, its gaze intense. I wondered if the summoner was controlling or viewing through it. The black, oily surface enveloped Maviet, sending him to the others in the ruins. The ice drake took a tentative step into the room, eyes locked on mine. If it had a ranged breath attack, I would retreat. If it got within 15 feet, I would end it. The room was only 30 feet across, but the drake paused, puffing frosted air in annoyance at me. The sound of soft footfalls behind the drake had me shift my focus to the corridor. The summoner was coming. Okay, what are they going to talk about? Like, hello? The slow, dramatic pace of his walk made time seem to stretch. The tall, aged elf entered the room, standing behind his drake. He rested a hand on its crown, stroking it. I pulled the ether potion back into my free hand, relaxing my grip on the black blade, letting it point at the ground to appear unthreatening. The High Mage Summoner surveyed the room, his eyes lingering on the dead owlbear before looking up at me. Did you kill the dire owlbear, Legionnaire? No. I was a little shocked. Did he not recognize me? Should I be insulted? I thought he would remember me from when he looked through the wyvern's eyes. He had sworn to kill me. Maybe, I replied evenly. Maybe? What are you gonna do about it? His eyes brightened as he studied me, and a flash of recognition appeared in his face. The Void Mage, his voice hardened. Do not come any closer. He studied my dilapidated and mangled Legion armor, a delighted smile forming. It looks like you have had a rough time in the dungeon. I was trying to decide what to do. Should I be honest and say, yeah, it was kind of hard, or should I be cool and say, no? I could argue that it was not a Void Mage. I could drop Aurelia in his lap and hope she convinced him not to attack. Or I could escape by taking one step back and joining the company. Instead, I asked, why did you follow us into the dungeon? The summoner smiled maliciously. You are ignorant of the goings-on in the world. I was running out of time for my revenge, as I was ordered to return. Your empire thinks it can hoard the secrets of the ancient titans. Right, I completely forgot that there's like something about the titans and where Durandus died and stuff. We cannot let them have it, as it would tip the balance of power too much. I figured I might be able to draw out more information if I kept the conversation going. So they found Atlantium, that's what it was called. Treliorn raised an eyebrow at my knowledge. You are no ordinary legionnaire. A Praetorian agent, then? For whom? I will be sure to let them know you will not be returning to their service. His dark humor attempted to mimic mine. I chuckled as he dug for information. No, I serve no one. I am a conscript, forced to join. Being a legionnaire was not by choice. You lie, legionnaire. The mage's voice suddenly turned angry. Oi, damn, the summoner was a truth seeker as well. This time, I felt the spell-like spiders crawling over my skin. Oh, nay. Oh, what the fuck, really? My sensitivity to ether had increased in the dungeon. I elaborated with the truth. After I was convicted of a crime and sentenced, I was given the choice of hard labor or the army. I chose the army. The elf nodded slowly, accepting my answer. He considered and shrugged. It matters not. You killed Veyril. My pursuit of vengeance has cost me much. But the knowledge and rewards of this fascinating dungeon have made up for it. And now you are trapped. A devilish smile formed on his face. Oh, please. A cold realization spread through me. I reached behind, expecting the dungeon's exit embrace, but I felt only a smooth, solid surface. I quickly looked back. The oily wall was still there, but something akin to my air shield blocked my exit. I was actually impressed that the mage had managed to cast a spell at such a distance, nearly 30 feet. He had more tricks than just summoning creatures. Perhaps we can bargain. Would you let me go in exchange for the Griffin Rider, the elf who was guarding Veyril? My bargaining position was not strong. If I could eliminate the Ice Drake, I might be able to race to the Earth Drake room and use the exit at the bottom of the stairs. Rally as a prisoner? I will inform her brother when I return. He can launch an expedition if he wishes, the mage said, unconcerned with the young elf's fate. It felt like the mage was toying with me, savoring his victory. I slowly raised my dark blade into a defensive posture. The Ice Drake immediately tensed, sensing a battle was coming. Kilma, relax. This one is mine. 7 arcane missiles formed over his shoulder and shot toward me. Oh shit, he's not wasting time. I hastily erected air shields in front of me. The 2 shields shattered under the force, and the 7th missile burned a hole through my severely damaged armor. My flesh burned where the missile struck, and the smell of burnt flesh reminded me I was facing a powerful mage. Are we not full of surprises? Treliorn exclaimed, genuinely shocked. What other secrets are you hiding? His unfriendly smile returned. Too many to count, I retorted reflexively. If you have a few hours, perhaps we can discuss them. The mage sighed. Unfortunately, I do not have time for banter. I need to eliminate the rest of your company and confront your emperor. It was time to go. I dashed to the right, aiming for the corridor. The ice drake exhaled a cloud of frost, but it wasn't nearly as powerful as the ice salamander's attack. It merely washed over me. Hello, Atreus. What's the chapter number? We are on chapter 176. I'm 98% sure that it's 176. I left an air shield behind, blocking the corridor. A torrent of lightning crashed into it, superheating the shield until it exploded, throwing me tumbling down the corridor. My ears rang, and I thought to myself that this most definitely was not a fair fight. No shit. I activated my healing spell form and coughed in pain. I stumbled to my feet as the mage's muted shout registered. No, Kilma! I glanced back to see the mage had warned the drake against pursuing me, but the beast's hunting instinct had taken over. It saw me beaten and sprawled on the floor, and it rushed toward me, eager to finish me off. The headless ice drake's body skidded into me. My head felt stuffed with cotton, my ears throbbed, and I stumbled to my feet and ran. Ran where? To the other exit? Damn. Chapter 177. Boss fight. Boss fight. Is it Trailyorn then? The mage's wails of anger echoed as I shuffled down the corridor. I fumbled with the cap of the ether potion and drank more than I intended in my haste. I immediately began directing the ether to heal my injuries. My head started to clear. The body of the ice drake should slow the mage down. Suddenly, I was shoved hard from behind by multiple impacts. Arcane bolts sizzled into my armor, creating burning holes and reaching my flesh. This was not a fair fight if I could not get close to the damned elven summoner to remove his head. 2 of the strikes hit the back of my thighs, scorching my hamstrings and making my escape even more difficult as my legs struggled to work properly. I could really use that greater healing potion I gave Maviot right about now. I pulled out the last lesser healing potion I took from Realia and drank it. It did not help much with my extensive injuries, but it did close my wounds. The minor numbing and cooling effect across my skin was also welcome. I had other potions and drank one of the major stamina potions. It collided with the remnants of the healing potion in my stomach, creating a burning, nauseous sensation. Maybe mixing potions was not a good idea, but the warm, revitalizing energy flooded my damaged body, allowing me to break into a run. The pain faded like a bad memory, though I knew I would be in a world of hurt once the potion wore off. I did not look back for the summoner as I turned into the corridor leading to the Earth Drake. The Earth Drake lay dead, just as we had left it. I was halfway across the large chamber, just past the Drake, when I slammed into an invisible wall. The jarring halt to my sprint sent me bouncing backward, landing hard on the dirt-covered floor. I scrambled back to use the Drake's body as cover. I thought I had broken my nose, as blood flowed freely across my lips and down my shin, and I spat out the metallic taste. When things settled, I panted heavily. "You're fast for an old man," I said, in my limited Elvish, hoping to confuse him. Instead, he laughed. Confuse him? You are butchering a beautiful language, Legionnaire. Just another reason you have to die. There was madness, anger, and condescension in his tone. I thought I had done a fairly respectable job speaking it. I was not going to talk my way out of this, and he would not let me escape. Relia would probably side with the summoner if I brought her out. I doubted the goblin would be much help, maybe a distraction at best. I retrieved the black-tipped spear, the spider-engraved short sword, and another greater stamina potion from my dimensional space. Wait. Does Eric have the goblin again? I thought he didn't. Maybe he picked him up again. Did he? I have a vague memory now that he actually did. That I was like, oh, he's back. Did he? Maybe. I hope he did. I gripped the spear, my only weapon that could be used as a ranged weapon. I'm sorry about your eyes, Drake, but she did not seem to be in a playful mood, I taunted, hoping to provoke him into making a mistake. But I immediately regretted my words. The fly does not antagonize the spider when caught. Yes, he does. Oh, yes. Okay, perfect. Kilma was a dear friend. Using his voice as my guide, I stood and hurled the spear at the summoner. He waved his right hand, and I saw the flash of a spell form. He was a skilled mage, creating spells almost instantly and with just one hand. The spear thudded into another invisible wall, causing an echo in the room. I ducked back behind the carcass of the earth drake. This was not going well. The spear was my only ranged weapon unless I wanted to start throwing purple potatoes at him. I mean, fuck it, that's what you have, do it. His imperious voice echoed in the room. Did you kill this earth drake as well? I suppose it was not much more difficult than a wyvern. There was an amused tone, as it was clear he had me cornered. His quick shift in emotion worried me, and he might have lost his grip on sanity. Feeling the effects of the stamina potion fading, I drank the second one while the standoff continued. It was a struggle to keep the potion down. Drinking so many... Drinking... Drinking so many potions in such a short time was probably not wise. With the black blade in one hand and the spider blade in the other, I planned to rush for the exit. I hoped that whatever invisible wall he had put up, I could destroy it with the two runic weapons, then descend the stairs to the safe room and escape the dungeon. I took a deep breath and released my distraction, my ether getting dangerously low. The goblin did not cooperate. Instead of... Wait. When did he say that he... Oh, and released my distraction. Oh, I didn't get... Okay, I'm a bit behind. The goblin did not cooperate. Instead of running and pulling the summoner's attention, it was disoriented and tried to hide under the earth drake's body, squeezing itself into the ground in a desperate attempt to disappear. Shit, the goblin was useless. Or maybe just smarter than me, considering the situation. No time had passed for it, and it had been paralyzed with fear when I returned it to my dimensional space. I pushed off the floor, my blades extended, and searched for the invisible wall. The black blade made contact first, and I swung the spider blade overhead. The wall had a slightly reverberation to it. I attacked in a berserk frenzy, and the spider blade drew on my ether with each strike, draining me dangerously. I never defeated the wall. Instead, the world lit up as a sun energy. Instead, the world lit up as energy surged around me. Lightning engulfed me, forcing my muscles to clench and straining my joints painfully. When the lightning stopped, all I could smell was burned flesh, and my vision was blurry. I groaned and rolled on the dirt, trying to focus on healing my eyes and ears while ignoring the pain. The soft shuffle of feet reached my ears. The mage was approaching. I continued to moan pitifully. It did not take much effort, and hoped the mage would come within 10 feet. Through my bloodshot eyes, I saw the hem of the summoner's dark blue robes. Then the bastard stopped, 20 feet away. I had expected some gloating speech and was not disappointed. Legionnaire. The goblin took that moment to scramble over the drake and flee the one-sided battle. No! No, now we won't get him back, probably. Rip. Oh, I wanted him. Congratulations, Final Smell getting first. Let's go. The mage turned toward the noise, and I rolled to my knees, planted my foot, and lunged toward him. My body protested the rapid movement, but I just needed to get close enough. I focused on the mage's head and tried to send it to my dimensional space. My veins began to burn with an uncomfortable intensity, warning me of being overtaxed. I had been pushing my other reserves for the last several minutes, refilling and depleting them repeatedly. Castile had warned me about the risk of burning out my other channels, and my body was telling me I was getting close. But it did not matter because I had won. Then came the backlash of Traeliorn's resistance. Not only did his head remain, but it felt as though mine had been severed. Time seemed to slow as I fell to the ground. I flung the spider blade at the mage, who was turning to face me again. His ether shield flared, but the runic weapon penetrated it enough to cut into the hand he had put up to block it. The cut was not deep, but I would have laughed if I were not in such a tremendous amount of pain. I fumbled inside my armor for the ether potion, only to find that the vial had cracked, leaving me with wet dirt. Oh, no way. I sucked on the dirty vial, trying to get even a drop of the restorative potion, but all I got was grit and crunchiness in my mouth and just a hint of ether. Traeliorn moved slowly toward me. I was helpless, and I could only watch. He bent down to pick up the spider blade, more interested in it than at finishing me off. As he examined the blade, his face twisted with concern. His eyes moved from the blade to me, and he spoke. A mage assassin, then? I would have never guessed it by your looks, boy. Still, I do not need magic to deal with you. He expertly spun the short blade in his hand, then frowned. His eyes hardened, and he attacked. I was weaponless, my black blade a dozen steps behind me. I pulled one of the fire bear pelts from my dimensional space, using it as a momentary shield. From this minuscule expenditure of ether, my veins felt as if they were filled with acid. I scrambled back to retrieve my long black blade. It worked, and I stood facing the irate summoner. Although standing might be too strong a word, I could barely force my body to an upright position. Traeliorn did not hesitate and rushed me, the short spider blade dancing dangerously in his skilled hands. Skilled hands. The exchange was fast. I thought myself an equal swordsman, but I was heavily injured, and he scored a light slash on the back of my hand, parting the flesh and exposing the tendon underneath. I moved to create some distance and tried to heal the wound. Nothing. I could not feel my tiny amount of ether in my core, or any ether at all. It was slippery as I tried to command it. The summoner smirked. Not so fun when it happens to you. The spider blade had a grimy, oily coating. It must have been what blocked my access to ether. That, or it emptied my ether core. The pause in our fight gave me a chance to ask a question. Is it permanent? It is your blade, Legionnaire. Do you not know what a mage bane is? He narrowed his eyes, suspicious that I might be trying to trick him. He obviously was not going to tell me much, but I figured he would be angrier if it was permanent. Suddenly, the goblin dashed out. Hell yes! And both of us turned to watch. It had circled back and picked up the spear, struggling with its weight. I thought it might help me, but instead it ran off with the spear down the corridor toward the dead owlbear. The summoner looked bemused by my shock. Traeliorn shifted his stance, removing his robes in a flourish to give himself greater movement. I drew my belt knife in my offhand as we circled each other. He took a side stance to reduce his profile, while I angled mine to bring the dagger into play. We engaged again, my joints protesting at the required speed. Not just a mage, then? I asked after a few exchanges, sporting several slashes on my armor. I had the longer reach, yet I was losing. He probably had centuries of practice, and my Dreamscape amulet was showing just how effective it was at focusing my training, but it was ultimately insufficient against his experience and my injuries. The elf smirked, speaking in Latin for the first time. I have kept fit through the centuries, training with some of the best rangers in Bardoradia. I can usually hold my own with a blade, but you are not unskilled. I acknowledged the compliment with a nod. He did not allow me to rest and moved to engage again. Gradually, I began to sense a glimmer of regaining control over my ether again, the poison from the spider blade fading. If Traeliorn regained control of his ether, I was doomed. The problem was that Traeliorn was not giving me an opening, and he countered any of my attempts to create one. The deadly dance continued, and I kept trying to coalesce my ether while defending myself. Despite its presence, it felt akin to trying to capture turbulent water with the sieve, whatever that is. I persistently attempted to collect every droplet, thriving to push it into my spell form, desperate to activate my dimensional space. Finally, I managed to pull the elven spear I retrieved from the ancient armory into my hand. I dropped both blades in favor of the ancient weapon, parrying Trailion's attack and sweeping the spear in an arc as he retreated. His right thigh now sported a deep gash, with some of the muscle exposed. I did not give him time to react, pressing the attack. Trailiorn was now hobbled, and suddenly I had the advantage. He seemed unfamiliar with fighting against a spear. I scored a hit to his abdomen, then another to the injured thigh. Oy oy oy. He tried to retrieve something from his belt, but that was his downfall. I drove the spear into his sternum, pinning him to the wall. Ooh! He was trying to thumb the top of a potion in his hand. Instead of stopping him, I moved in close and wrenched the Magebane blade from his grasp. He brought the potion to his lips, but I used the spider blade to open his throat. Whoa! The poison coating the blade as I slashed. My other channels burned as the blade sucked what little ether my body had to create its supernatural concoction. The potion tried to heal the wound, so I sawed away frantically until his head was severed. Oy, oy, oy. What? The mage's body slid down the wall, the spear tip scraping the stone as it went. With his head in one hand and the dripping spider blade in the other, I dropped the head and joined him on the ground. The adrenaline of battle ebbed away, and every injury on my body began screaming as the rush faded. That was very intense. Is he really dead? Like, I know, okay, his head is on the ground, right? But it's like, is this how he dies? I guess. I pulled a canteen of water from my dimensional space, ignoring the ether burn from the action. I drained it dry, belching loudly. I did not bother offering any to the summoner. Exhaustion swept over me, amplified by the potions, the other backlash, the poison, and my wounds. If I slept here, I would likely wake up inside an earth drake's stomach. I gathered my black blade and positioned the mage body and head on his robes before starting to drag it back to the safe room. Once the pain of the ether burn lessened, I would use the collector on him. Oh! The corridors seemed much longer than they had before, and every step was a chore. The ice drake was still mostly blocking the corridor. I needed to use the collector on it soon or risk losing its essence. I pulled the mage past the drake and into the safe room. The black spear was near the owlbear in the center of the safe room, and the goblin had rummaged through my pack, consuming everything that was edible. It was now in a contented food coma, oblivious to my presence. Well, then I guess we have a goblin again. I guessed it had not eaten in days. I glanced at the dungeon exit, wondering how the company was managing. Because of the specters. But if he's dead, does the specters die? No, because the specters had nothing to do with the summoner. Right, they're separate things. Yeah? Chapter 178. To the victor goes the spoils. The goblin lay sprawled on the ground, its belly bloated and drooling in its sleep, blowing grotesque bubbles of saliva. I assumed he could finally die happy with a full belly. The goblin had tossed everything out of my pack, scattering it across the room. I thought briefly about killing the small, unsightly creature, but it had saved my life in its own way. Did it? It seemed too cruel to kill my benefactor in its sleep. I moved as quietly as possible to reclaim the spear and make sure it had no access to any weapons. I would let it fend for itself in the dungeon when it woke. My veins and arteries still burned with every beat of my heart, warning me against using any more ether. On the other hand, I had 3 powerful potential essences in this room. I would not risk permanent damage by returning the goblin to my dimensional space, but I could at least claim the essences, as that should just require a tiny amount of ether. I felt a sense of urgency to catch up with the others, as Castile had the Kettle of Souls. I started by searching the mage, no longer squeamish about looting the dead. The robe I had used to drag him to the safe room seemed to resist staining. Even the pools of blood from his neck had not soaked into the fabric. It was probably an artifact, so I snapped it in the air, rolled it up, and stuffed it into my conveniently emptied pack. He wore a single shiny, untarnished gold ring on each ring finger. Both were definitely dungeon artifacts. His elaborate black belt had 6 small sewn-in pouches, 3 on each hip, each just big enough for a hand. I checked them, but they were all curiously empty. Maybe he had used everything. I coiled the appealing utility belt and added it to my pack as well. A heavy gold and silver medallion rested around what remained of his neck, another artifact, and possibly similar to Castile's Aethershield amulet. I had depleted his Aethershield during the fight. I put it in the pack for now. His boots were nice, but they were far too small for me. There was not much less of use here, so I assumed the summoner had left his pack elsewhere. I strapped my black blade and the Magebane blade to my pack, shouldered it, and carried the spear as I left the room. The walk to the owlbear room seemed to take forever, but I was rewarded with a room filled with tall grasses and dark berry bushes. I quickly located the untouched reward chest for defeating the owlbear. Without hesitation, I shattered it and was relieved to find the greater healing potion I was hoping for. I drank it immediately, the multitude of injuries fading like a bad dream. I had not realized how injured I truly was until the warmth of the healing potion washed over me. I could have waited hours and healed myself with my spell form, but I needed to catch up with the others, so time was of the essence. I packed away the silver coins and a second potion. A quick glance at the runic script told me it enhanced one's strength when consumed. I pulled the collector from my dimensional space, my other channels flaring in protest at even the smallest of other expenditures. I considered my armor for a moment. It was in terrible condition, with multiple holes in the resin-infused hide from the powerful arcane missiles. I unbuckled it, discarding the pieces on the floor. Even my clothes underneath had numerous holes. Feeling much freer in my movements, I returned to the safe room. The goblin was still sleeping, with a larger puddle of drool beneath its chin. At least it seemed to be having pleasant dreams. I used the collector on the owlbear first, wincing at the effort of channeling even a wisp of ether into it. As the disc pulled the rich blue smoke, I worried it had been too long since the creature's death to yield anything, but I was rewarded with a modest dark purple sphere, a major strength essence. The summoner was next. Oh, not the dragon? I placed the collector in his chest, anticipating something substantial. I jumped when the goblin let out a loud flatulence. It was an attack, just not a physical one, as the foul cloud reached me. I covered my nose as I channeled my ether despite the persistent pain. I was rewarded with an apex essence, a luminescent pearl for increasing ether pool capacity. I thumbed the spear in appreciation. This was much better than the magic affinity I had expected. I wanted to consume it immediately, but I was still recovering from my last earth essence, and my ether channels were still on fire. The burn was so bad I was sweating. The headless drake in the corridor was the last potential essence. I packed the apex pearl in my pack and moved to where the drake lay. It really was a beautiful creature when it was not trying to kill you. I ran my hand along the scales, which were silky smooth and cool to the touch. If Maviet were here, he'd probably be upset that I was not working hard to harvest the creature properly. I balanced the collector on its body and endured the increasing pain. The rich blue etheric smoke formed quickly. A dark blue aquamarine spear formed. An apex water affinity essence. I was slightly shocked but appreciative. I packed essence with the collector in my bag. I'm getting distracted because I'm only thinking about how the fuck is he gonna explain this? Like, what is he gonna say when he comes out there? Hello, I'm alive. Like, he doesn't have to say like I killed the summoner, because he can just be like, yo, because they're not fucking going back in there, I guess. But if they do, oh. With the black blade and the Magebane blade strapped to my pack, I shouldered it. Once the ether burn lessened, I would store the entire pack, but for now I needed to avoid further damage to my channels. I prepared to exit the dungeon, carrying only the spear. Wait. He still is going out without his armor. Right? The goblin chose that moment to stir, panicking when it saw me. I held the spear in a non-threatening manner, resting the butt on the floor. The goblin scurried into the wall. I'm sorry, but I cannot take you with me. No more free rides. Best of luck, little guy. Aww. I saluted the petrified creature and stepped into the oily portal, leaving behind the terrified but satiated goblin. Oh no. Well, bye, goblin. The bright snow momentarily blinded me as I exited the dungeon. It was midday, the brilliant sun reflecting off the snow. I swung the spear in a defensive arc as my eyes adjusted. Red splotched filled my blurry vision, and soon I could see the Legion armor and blood-stained snow. No specters in sight. Further away, near the collapsed tavern, lay a troll with a Legionnaire's body pinned beneath it. Oh. I inhaled deeply, savoring the crisp, cool air, finally free of the stale dungeon atmosphere. I sighed as I saw no sign of the company. It should not have been more than 2 hours since they had fled ahead of me. The heart tree's green canopy extended high above me. I took a quick glance at the branches, looking out for the giant eagles, but saw none. I assumed the wyverns had finished him off. Still, it would be a shame to fall prey to an attack now that freedom was so close. I relaxed slightly, and I surveyed the area around me. No specters were in sight. On inspection, I recognized the body under the troll as Lucian, the horse master. All right. I closed his wide, shocked eyes and whispered, "Thank you for sharing your wisdom about horses." Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I sighed, recalling our time in Formica. Another legionnaire lay within the tavern wreckage, a bow still clutched in his grasp. I assumed it was Pavel, but I did not venture into the debris to confirm. Okay. Beneath the tavern rubble were runic armor and a great sword, but this was not the time to retrieve them. The courtyard where the dungeon entrance lay was packed with snow. The tracks showed the company scaling the wall to my right, since the entrance had collapsed. I picked up a Legion helm, red hair spilled out, and as I turned it over, Remus's frozen head rolled out. His milky eyes stared up at me from the icy snow. My own indifference to his lifeless face surprised me. My helm was the only piece of my own armor left. I still had the full set of armor gifted to me by the Duchess, but I would not be able to retrieve it for some time. I forgot about that, but that's correct. The torn bodies of 3 legionnaires lay scattered and pressed into the snow. This confirmed that the wyverns had killed the entire group: Soren, Cyrus, and Remus. I started piecing together a set of armor. Cyrus had been short but barrel-chested, and his upper body armor would fit me well enough. Soren had been taller, and his greaves should work for me. As I dug out Cyrus's body when a familiar voice called out, "Eric!" Maviath? I spun to see Maviath, standing in front of the dungeon entrance. "Maviath, did y'all go back into the dungeon?" I looked at the wall the company had climbed, then back at Maviath. Maviath's voice echoed too loudly. "No, I have been searching the dungeon for you. I have been going in and out, hoping to find you." Oh, my throat tightened as the loyalty and friendship he showed. Thank you, Maviath, for having faith. What about the company? Oh, Maviath. They went over the wall. They planned to find a building to access the Undercity, Maviath replied, but his booming voice drew a specter through the wall. I grabbed my spear, and a single stab dispersed it. The spear must have been stronger than my black blade, since it usually took more than one strike with the blade to finish a specter. Maviath rushed to my side, ready to help. I whispered, "Keep your voice down, Maviath. Keep watch while I salvage some armor." "I am sorry. I was just so happy to see you alive. What happened to your armor? Is the summoner coming?" He asked much more quietly while standing over me as I worked. I growled unhappily as I pulled the body from its icy grave. "The summoner destroyed my armor. I don't think he'll be joining us." Maviath grunted, but did not ask further questions. Maviath exclaimed, as quietly as a Goliath could, "I almost forgot. I have words from Castile. She asked me to tell you that you should stop playing the hero." I clenched my jaw as I heard Castile's message, and my hands were soon numb from the cold as I claimed the armor from my fallen comrades. Legion armor was precisely fitted to each person. I knew I would get some chafing from wearing this armor, but it was better than nothing. "All right, Maviath, let us get out of here." Stop playing the hero. No. The company had packed snow and debris to create a small ramp up to the wall. It was just over 10 feet high, and I managed to pull myself up. Maviath handed me the spear as I surveyed the city from the top of the courtyard's wall. He climbed up to join me. Half of the buildings had collapsed over the centuries, but some remained, some still reaching several stories high. It seemed like the weeks we had spent in the dungeon had compacted the snow somewhat. The bluish heads of several specters were visible above the snow, indicating that the depth was around 4 or 5 feet. The company had broken a path through the snow to a building across the street. "Wyvern, Eric," Mavis whispered, startling me, and drawing my attention behind us. In the distance, a wyvern circled far away from the city. It must have been released from the summoner's control when he entered the dungeon and had yet to wander off. "We need to reach the Undercity and catch up with the others. I see dozens of specters down the street." I dropped the spear and lowered myself onto the packed snow. Maybe it landed with a thud beside me. I barely had time to grab the spear before the first spectre emerged from the snow around us. A quick upward slash dispatched the spectre. "Move, Mavieth!" I hissed as I followed the path the company had cleared. The narrow channel through the snow was dangerous, as spectres could appear right next to us. The spear proved invaluable, easily dispersing spectres with one strike. Reaching the building door, we found it had been smashed in. I stepped over the threshold, looking around. "Mavieth, do you have your glowstone?" He entered behind me, and I turned to defend the door while Mavieth retreated. I avoided retreat with my own glowstone to spare my channel further strain. By the time Mavieth retrieved the glowstone, I had already cut down 2 more spectres. The building appeared to be a shop, though its display cases were long destroyed, and its furniture had collapsed. Drifts of snow had gathered through the broken windows, but I could see multiple footprints in the dust and snow. "Find where they went. I'll hold the door." As Mavieth followed the company's tracks, I cut down 3 spectres. The commotion would definitely draw more. "Over here, Eric," Mavieth finally called. I retreated after dispatching another spectre. The spectres would reform in about half an hour, and I was eager to put some distance between us. Thank you so much, Sinful, for the follow. I appreciate it. Welcome, welcome. But between us, the back of the shop would reform in about half an hour. At the back of the shop, Mavieth found stairs leading down into the Undercity. Clear footprints in the dust showed the company had gone that way. "Go," I urged to Goliath. I followed Mavieth down the stairs. Once we reached the landing, we saw tracks in the dust leading both right and left. "Which way?" Mavieth asked, focusing on a spectre approaching from the left. I was puzzled by the tracks. It looked like the company had split, with half going left and the other half going right. No, this had to be Constantine laying a false trail for the summoner. If I were Constantine, which path would I choose? 50-50. You can also take one and go back, I guess. I mean, right? Chapter 179. Last Day in Kaelora. In the glowstone light, it took us a few minutes to identify that one set of tracks looked slightly larger. Backtracking is much harder than following a trail of laid footfalls, Mavieth intoned softly, pointing towards the likely path. We moved to follow it. 100 feet further down the tunnel, the first turn showed signs that someone had been waiting in ambush around the corner. The dust was disturbed, and there were spots of drying urine on the wall, clear signs we were heading in the right direction. A spectre interrupted our inspection of the intersection. Wow, interrupted inspection intersection. My god. Maybe his hammer made quick work of it, and we moved out before it could reform. Where are you going, puppy? To shoe and a bone. We followed the trail, cutting down a few more spectres that appeared more frequently. The roots of the heart tree blocked several passages, and it seemed the company was circling around the root system in the opposite direction from where we had arrived. It did not make much sense, unless they were planning to leave the city by a different route. Yeah, tongue twister indeed. I recalled the map of the city in my head. The heart tree was in the northern district, near the city wall. My best guess was that they were planning to exit as far from the library as possible in case the summoner searched there first. After killing a fifth spectres in just a few minutes, I paused in the corridor. Maybe do you think we should try to find our way to the library instead of following the company's path? And welcome, Ghost. Hello. Maybe consider the question. Why? Do you not wish to reunite with everyone? It's not that. They're headed for areas of the city with a high concentration of spectres. We could get swarmed, and Castile may have stopped using the kettle on dissipated spectres to make it harder to follow them, since they don't know the summoner is dead. We spent weeks thinning out the spectres around the library. It might be safer for us to go that route. Maybe it looked thoughtfully down both directions of the corridor. If you think the library is safer, then we should go that way. Maybe it tightened his grip on his hammer. I turned around and we backtracked to the first split in the corridor. Soon we encountered a familiar spectre, a teenage elf in a ball gown. I remembered her clearly from the first time I had faced her. I cut her down and we started following the other set of tracks. Before long, we reached a room beneath the adventurer's tavern we had sheltered in. The wyverns had collapsed the structure. Constantine must have laid the false track to this point to confuse the elven mage. We continued to follow the clear path all the way back to the wine cellar. Only 6 wandering spectres confronted us on the journey, far fewer than on the short path we had followed for Castile and the others. We entered the wine cellar, which appeared undisturbed, and no spectres were present. I could use a rest maybe. I think we're safe here. I sat down on one of the bunks we had hauled into the room. I was exhausted and famished after using so many healing potions. I assumed we'd face a fight to make it from the library to the city gates. I was tempted to retrieve something from my dimensional space, but my other channels were still flaring. Just one small item should not hurt, right? I pulled the Dreamscape amulet to my hand and winced at the pain. How long was this burn going to last? Maybe Castile's book in the Dreamscape had an answer. Where did it go? Oh, there, under the PC. Yeah. Okay, bye. I could use a rest. Maybe I'd eyed the amulet knowingly. I'll then watch for Spectre's Eric. You can rest. I began walking up and down the rows of bottles while I made myself comfortable. With just a painful trickle of ether, I entered the Dreamscape. The Dreamscape creations greeted me. Lucian, the horse master, was among them, and a heavy weight settled on me, seeing him alive and smiling. I talked to him about horses, while Oscar circled me excitedly with a ball. Relia's clone demanded to know when she was going to be freed from her prison. Constantine, Xavier, and Adrian pestered me to spar, but I turned them down as I moved to the shelves of books. Scholar Fabian interrupted me, saying, "You know, Eric, if you're passing through the library, I wouldn't mind getting some more reading material." I paused, looking at him. I had already added all 300 books to the Calorian elves had an herbalism and apothecary to the Dreamscape. I recalled the other sections of the library: cooking and brewing, weaving, woodcraft, and a floor filled with books on metallurgy. Everything from household goods to weapons and armor. "I'll see what I can do, Scholar Fabian," I replied, and the manifestation of my subconscious smiled brightly. The manifestations of my subconscious smiled brightly. I focused on learning what I could about ether burns from the books Castile had manifested. The news was not good. If you continued using ether while feeling the sensation of burning, you risked destroying your ability to channel ether. It was described as feeding the fire. So I had already reduced my capacity to channel. After a storm of curses, which made everyone back away from me fearfully, I calmed down. The text said that healing ether channels required consuming apex channeling essences, and it would take around a dozen or more to restore each point of potential. I guessed it might take less for me. Maybe I could even manage with major essences. However, I currently had no channeling essences. The only ones I ever had came from the manticores and gargantuan dungeon spider. I reread the Burnt Mage chapter a few times before putting the book back on the shelf. The amount of pain a burnt mage experienced depended on how many points of potential they had lost. Based on the pain I felt, I feared I had lost quite a few points. There was nothing I could do about it now, and there was nothing I would change about the fight, except running sooner. Since my slow aging spell form constantly drew ether, I would be in constant pain until I consumed the necessary ether channeling essence. Well, that's not nice. I played with Oscar and practiced with my new spear for a while before leaving the dreamscape. Maviath had pulled dozens of bottles of elven wine from the racks and placed them on another bunk. Any specters? I asked as I stood. None, he grumbled tiredly. I nodded. That was good news. It meant the specters had not tracked us. Rest for a while, Maviath, and then we'll visit the towers and the library before leaving the city. Why? He asked, confused. I want to gather some books to take with us. Maviath looked at the wine he was selecting. I was hoping you could take some of these if you had space. I am partial to the deep red ones in the green bottles. I revealed my issue to him. I'll see what I can do. I burnt my other channels fighting the summoner. With a very serious tone, Maviath said, Your body tells you when you need to stop using ether. Everyone knows that. I frowned but did not respond. Castile had told me as much, but I had pushed my limits. My ether tolerance far exceeded my ether pool, and I had been forced to drink the ether restoratives repeatedly, just seconds apart. Eventually, Maviath lay down with the dreamscape amulet, and I took watch. Hours later, Maviath woke with a yawn and a burst of morning flatulence. I moved away from the deadly cloud and figured it had been long enough to try accessing my dimensional space again. I pulled out the elven tablet reader table, and while my channels still burned, it had not gotten any worse. I took a deep breath and activated the table through the pain. I was stunned by what I saw. My other channeling was 27 out of 57, dropping from 28 to 58. I had only lost a single point of potential. Why was the pain so intense? Was I just weak? What would it feel like if I lost 2 or 3 points? Suddenly, I felt a lot more sympathy for the old healer back in Sovrol. Maybe it kept his distance, respecting my privacy. I reset the reader. Do you want to use it? I asked, but he shook his head. I pulled out a thermal stone and a large quantity of food for a feast, letting Maviath prepare it. Hey yo! Saeed, hello, it's me. Thank you. I have been gone for a while. Happy to be back, as always. We had potatoes, bacon, and liver for Maviath. Even with my ring of sustenance, I had an enormous appetite. Keeping pace with Maviath, who was more than a little surprised as we mock raced to finish our food. I moved all 48 bottles of dark red elven wine into my space to join the 9 remaining bottles. The other burn was the same, whether I was moving a larger or small item. Maviath shook his head in sympathy, or perhaps disappointment, as I winced from the effort. It was a different type of pain than physical. I reactivated my slow aging spell. It felt like fire coursing through my veins instead of blood. Over time, I hoped I could get used to it. Before sending my pack to storage, I studied the runes on both of the summoner's rings, turning the thermal stone slowly. I would figure out what they did in the dreamscape sometime later. I attached the black blade to my hip and decided to send the Mega Bane blade. The Mega Blade. The Mega Bane. Mage Bane blade to storage with the pack. My head exploded in a flash of light, then nothing. I woke on the floor with a genuinely concerned Maviot kneeling over me, shaking me. "Eric, wake up!" he shouted, rattling my armor with his efforts. "I'm awake!" I protested. "What happened?" Maviot exhaled in relief. "Your backpack shot across the room and slammed into the wall, and you collapsed." My head hurt, and my other channels flared with each beat of my heart. I recall what happened. I opened my dimensional space, selected an open spot for the pack, tried to close it, and then, boom. Something in the pack could not be stored in my dimensional space. That's a first. I quickly scanned my storage and was relieved to see everything intact. Relia seemed unharmed, though I would not know for sure until I released her. I rubbed my aching head, reactivating my slow-aging spell form again and dealt with the pain. I picked up the pack, ensuring the collector was unharmed. Something among the summoner's belongings resisted being stored. I think I'm fine. It was just extreme backlash, like when I failed to store the summoner's head, but 10 times worse. I stood unsteadily, searching through the pack. I had my suspicions. It was either the robe or the belt. Or it could have been the rings or the amulet. It was either this, or it could be these 4 things. My splitting headache felt like some modicum of revenge from the dead mage. I pulled out the robe and belt, but decided against trying again. I replaced them, shouldering the pack. I stored the Mage Bane blade and the Essence Collector instead. Let's head to the tower. We only encountered 2 specters on our walk, and one did not even attack. It was just an elf boy wandering the Undercity with a toy soldier in his hand. We climbed the tower, and the lingering, unwashed smell of the company still hung in the air, even after weeks. The sun was shining outside, and maybe it looked to me for direction. "Bring me the books on smithing. We'll take as many as I can store to sell. In the meantime, I'll page through as many of these other books as I can to add to the dreamscape." Maybe it did not question the delay in leaving the city and got to work. It was about midday, judging by the sun outside. I decided I would work until sunrise the next day, then would leave. My Elvish had improved significantly, making it easier to translate the titles. Scholar Fabian had not shuffled the books too much on the shelves. I started with the cooking and brewing books, leaning toward brewing. Since I was only paging through, I was not consuming the knowledge, but enjoyed the faded illustrations briefly as I worked, preparing to add them to the dreamscape later. After sunset, I worked under the glowstone while a stack of smithing books Maybe it brought started growing large. I doubted I would be able to take them all. Maybe it finished his task, bringing all the viable books, and I moved on to paging through the woodcraft books. My eyes burned as I turned pages hour after hour. Maybe it was snoring softly by the time dawn crept through the window. I had just finished the woodcraft collection and let Maybe it sleep until I was done. Then I stood, cracking my back. I was surprised I could store all 500 books Maybe it had brought from the other library. Are they pamphlets? But I had to remove some apples and potatoes. My extra dimensional storage cube was getting crowded, but eventually I would page through the books to add them to the dreamscape and could sell them. Maybe I could return one day to collect the rest, though I assumed that once Casil were put back, the Empire would clear the city of specters and take the intact tomes. "Maybe I called out loudly to wake my friend. He woke quickly, standing on alert. "It's almost time to leave. I'll get some sleep while you cook. Wake me when you're ready to leave." With that, I channeled a bit of ether into the dreamscape amulet and fell into slumber. "It's time to go," Maybe it said, after taking the amulet from my hand as I woke. Maybe it had left a plate of food for me to enjoy. It was it was mid. The food kinda mid. It was mid-morning, and our last day in the lost elven city of Kaelora. Holy shit. Chapter 180. Escape from Kaelora. We descended the tower together, Maviot's heavy steps echoing, drawing a spectre. A translucent elf appeared, wearing a leather apron and wielding a hammer. The black spear hummed as it effortlessly slashed through the phantasm. We moved back into the main library. The vast chamber was much emptier than when we had arrived. Piles of fragile books lined one wall, but the company had broken apart most of the shelves to keep warm during the weeks we were there. We had tried to avoid burning the ancient books, but many had been used as fuel if they were deemed to deteriorate to be salvaged. Eric, look! Maviot paused and knelt. At first I did not see it, but there were small footprints in the light layer of recent dust. Goblin tracks! Goblin tracks! His deep voice informed me. How many? Maybe we cleared enough specters that the local goblins have nested here. I scanned the open room for movement. Small tracks, probably a young green. Only one unique set, Maviot said after a moment standing. I could not help but laugh. That little bugger. He must have followed us. I explained to the confused Goliath. I used a goblin to distract the summoner. I left it in the dungeon, but it saw me exit. I guess it didn't want to spend its final days in the dungeon. Maviot spent a few minutes tracking the goblin, but soon gave up when the tracks crossed themselves repeatedly. Most likely the creature was hiding somewhere in the library. It just might survive if it could keep avoiding the specters. Maybe it would even follow us out of the library. At this point, it definitely deserved its freedom. Outside the library, the snow was still present. Compacted down. What is the puppy? Okay. Yeah. No, I'm not going back to bed. Freedom. Outside the library, the snow was still present, compacting down to about 5 feet, and from the steps we could only see the head of a single spectre walking the streets. The city gates were still a few blocks away, maybe a quarter mile. There could also be more specters hidden below the snow if they were shorter. We had certainly seen a large number of spectral children during our time in the city. Maybe we could make some snowshoes from some of the shelving, I suggested. Maviot processed my words but looked confused. How would shoes made out of snow help us? I patted my tall friend on the back, smiling. An hour later, we had makeshift snowshoes strapped to our feet, wide planks tied to our boots. I had done snowshoeing a few times before and gave Maviot some advice. One step at a time. Plant your heel first with your lead foot and don't rush it. My spear can handle any specters quickly, so don't panic and fall. I do not know. Are you sure these will allow us to walk in the snow? They do not seem enchanted, Eric. Maviot said, skeptical. I was concerned too. He was such a large man. Even slimmed down a bit, he was likely around 350 pounds, more with his gear. I reassured the Goliath. The snow has compacted over the last few months. We shouldn't have any trouble. I climbed onto the snow first, sinking just an inch or two with each step. Maviot followed hesitantly. His larger feet sank a few inches, but he stayed atop the snow. He paused, amazed that it worked. As we walked through the blinding white snow, I led us and stabbed any spectre foolish enough to show itself. Fortunately, it seemed the spectres could not see through the snow themselves. We had walked first block, halfway to the gate, when Maviot informed me. The goblin is at the library doors. I twisted awkwardly and saw the tiny goblin standing there, watching us leave. It was a pitiful sight, looking like we were abandoning the childlike creature. It's light enough that it does not even need snowshoes. It's on its own now. We need to hurry and get under the trees. We'll be too visible against the snow to wyverns or eagles, I said, turning and continuing across the snow. We reached the gate quickly and faced a problem. The gap in the gate was buried beneath the snow. While Mavian dug into the snow, I guarded him. Half a dozen specters interrupted his work, and he was struck twice while digging. I responded quickly, but they appeared suddenly from the snow wall. Mavieth was limping, but managed to climb over the snowpack on the other side of the gate. I followed, and we moved rapidly away from the walls of Kaelora. Mavieth was leading, stumbling a few times as he missed his steps with the snowshoes. Soon we were under the cover of the barren branches. We stopped to catch our breath, both laughing. We were free. Hell yeah! We were on the eastern side of the ruins. We could head west to the city of Parvis, about 50 miles away, or south to Sobrel, about 70 miles through direwolf territory. Alternatively, we could head northwest, following the river back to Tella, the capital. As we rested under the trees, the tiny goblin emerged from the city gate, running wildly with books tied to its feet, mimicking our snowshoes. A few spectral heads pursued it, bobbing just above the snow as it raced for the trees. It disappeared into the forest, still running. Mavieth and I looked at each other and shrugged. That brief excitement over, Mavieth asked, "Where are we going from here?" The company has nearly a day's head start on us. I think they would have headed north to the capital if they exited near the northern wall. The city of Parvis is the closest though. Maybe just a 2-day walk for us, following the river. Castile wanted to avoid Parvis because Duke Octavian's son is the count there, but they have a portal to the capital. We might even beat the company to Tella if we go that way. I realized Mavieth was not aware of Castile and the company's conflict with Duke Octavian. After considering for a moment, Mavieth questioned, "What about heading back to Sobrel? Should we not inform the Duchess of her success?" I shrugged. "I'm a bit worried about the direwolves with just the two of us, Mavieth. Parvis, then to the capital. Then I can take a ship back to Stone Mountain Island," he nodded, as this route took him in the direction he wanted to go, to confess to his father. Right. We kept to the cover of the trees and we moved east. After about 6 miles, the snowpack had dwindled to just 2 feet deep, and we discarded our snowshoes. Mavieth's snowshoes had been falling apart anyway. We reached the wide, uncrossable Agentero River, and I followed it toward Parvis. The snow showed a lot of tracks: bears, gnolls, humanoids with boots, wolves, and even some horse tracks that Mavieth insisted were Centaur tracks. Centaur? All these creatures had given the ruins of Kaelora a wide berth, obviously smarter than us. Night descended about halfway to the city. We made camp in the center of a group of evergreens and used a thermostone to cook. The stone was a huge boon, providing heat for cooking without any smoke or scent of burning wood that would attract creatures. Still, with just the two of us, I stayed on watch all night, while Mavieth slept in short spurts with the amulet. As Mavieth entered another round of sleep with the amulet, I carried a glowstone a short distance into the woods. I listened for a while, only hearing the soft crackle of snow refreezing after the mild day. I considered waking Mavieth but decided against it. There was a mix of jealousy and fear that he might leave with her. Relia stood before me, crouched in anticipation. The glowstone shadowed her features, and she exhaled a cloud of steam in the chilly night air. After seeing I was alone, she finally spoke. We're out of the dungeon. Her posture relaxed. "Yes, we are about 20 miles west of Parvis. Do you know where that is?" I asked. With a note of sorrow, she looked around. "I know where Parvis is. Did Mavieth not make it?" I doubted she would have had the same concern for me. "Mavieth is sleeping," I said, adding a little white light to spur her. "My company is not far off, with my mage commander. You should get going. I suggest traveling south, crossing the river, and making your way home." I produced her pack and handed it to her. With the egg. "There's food and some fragile items inside, so be careful with it. You should make haste." She sheathed her blades and stepped forward to take her pack, surprised by its weight. She shouldered it and was about to turn, but paused. "If you are ever captured," she began, then hesitated. "Ask for General Cleland Glavian. I'll tell my brother you helped me. He'll make sure you end up in a work camp rather than strung up with the other legionnaires." "What a generous offer," I replied with a mocking undertone. She rolled her eyes at me one last time, checked the position of the moon, and trudged off into the snow. I listened to her footsteps fade away. I hoped she made it home safely. I wondered what her reaction would be when she saw the griffin egg and apex fire essences in her pack. Certain she was gone, I returned to camp and warmed myself with a thermal stone. I took out the large pearl essence I had collected from the summoner and placed it in my mouth. A tingling feeling spread through my body as it dissolved. It was easy to swallow, like cool water, and chills spread from my abdomen to my extremities. My heart pounded, recognizing the potential power I was consuming. Hello, Dad. You're not allowed to bite on that. No. Absolutely. Is it? Yeah. No. Pillow saved. You have so many other things you can bite on. Yeah. Up. No. Oh. I felt my other core swell, and my other shadows flared in protest. I was going to need to get them repaired. The core enhancement briefly distorted my spell forms, causing me to lose my connection to the slow aging spell before it re-established itself. I would have to ask Castile if increasing my ether core would endanger my spell forms. Hello. You can be here. Okay, bye. When everything settled, I released a relieved groan. I showed restraint in not checking my attributes immediately. Once we reached safety, I could review my progress. We started moving early in the day, walking along the river. A barge loaded with soldiers, along with a handful of legionnaires in red armor, came up behind us. We paused, thinking we could get a ride the rest of the way to Parvis. It was still nearly 30 miles away. Even half a mile off, I could see Benito jumping up and down, pointing at Mavis and me, yelling something I could not make out as the barge changed course, heading toward us. The entire company crowded the bow as the craft scraped the sandy shoal below the bank where we stood. Castile could not hide her smile, and Constantine shook his head. Benito was yelling about winning some bet. We scrambled down the bank to board, receiving pats on the back and half hugs. Curiously, one member of the company was missing, Flavius. The bargemen got the barge back into the river, grumbling about the smell of legionnaires they had picked up along their journey. The 40 or so soldiers knew better than to complain about our unwashed bodies. Welcome back. After being fed and deflected questions for an hour by telling them we escaped by returning to the library and using the west gate to exit the city, I ended up in a secluded spot on the bow with Castile and Adrian. Castile asked quietly, "The summoner?" "Oh, right, it was Adrian," she told, because Delmar is dead. I said in the recap that Castile told Delmar, "What is Adrian? Delmar is dead." Oh no. I meant Adrian, right. Oops. "He won't be following us," I said flatly. Castile nodded slowly, relief flooding her face, but she did not press for details. "Where is Flavius?" I asked about the missing member. Adrian answered with skepticism. "Hello, girl. Not much left." Constantine said a white got him in the Undercity when they scouted our escaped route together. Castile's face remained unreadable. Castile let out a long breath. The Empire is at war. The Essenham elves have landed on Amatalhos Isle, breaking the peace treaty that stood for centuries. Word is that the Baltan orcs are also gathering a fleet, but no one knows where they will land once they sail. The summoner had mentioned the Essenham elves. I stayed quiet, and Adrian continued. "Everyone is descending on the swamps south of Macha. There are even rumors that the emperor might leave his palace." My mouth fell open. A four-nation war was brewing over the site of the city of the giants, Atlantium, all because I told a single truth seeker about it. Yeah. After I digested the news and my potential role in sending thousands of men to die on a swampy battlefield, I inquired, "Are we headed back to Macha then? Maybe we should have stayed in the dungeon. It would have been safer." Castile smirked at my attempt at humor, but looked uncertain. "I won't know our orders until I report to the Legatus Legionis in Parvis." Oh. I mean, we will do this. It's just one chapter. And then we'll do one less chapter next time, I guess. Chapter 181. Castile POV. Epilogue. Castile observed the departure of Legionnaire Eric and the Goliath from the safe room. Curiosity about how the young Legionnaire would kill the Earth Drake pulled her to investigate. She considered sending her all-seeing eye to follow them, but the extra ether required in the dungeon was best conserved. She was fortunate to have such a hidden power in the company, but keeping the others ignorant of it had become a full-time job. Flavius, in particular, was starting to ask too many questions. Adrian believed he would try to gain favor with the first citizen or Praetorian Guard when they reached the city. Castile had her own ideas on how to protect the Legionnaire, but first she needed to protect herself. Her gaze swept across the room, taking in the rest of the Legionnaires. Despite the looming danger of the summoner within the dungeon, a sense of camaraderie and determination radiated from them as they prepared. The summoner's presence in the dungeon was a constant threat, and any attempt to flee would likely result in his swift pursuit. Their best chance was to ambush him when he emerged, but even that carried considerable risk. If the summoner controlled the dungeon creatures, he could send them out first to occupy the company, then join the attack himself. Traeliorn's reputation as the most powerful summoner on the continent overshadowed the fact that he was also a formidable battle mage. Though he had not fought on the front lines in a century, Castile had read the histories and knew how much of a threat he posed and how feared he had been when he fought the Empire. The company's best option was to distance themselves from the summoner and reach the safety of a city as quickly as possible. Castile reflected on the mission and still felt the pain of all the men she had failed and lost since Duchess Veronica assigned it to her. She wished she had never accepted it. Young Lysander had been the first to fall in the Undercity. Lysander had grown up in the village of Modena, near where she had been born. He was a good lad, and his fate was undeserved, just like many of the conscripted legionnaires in the Empire. She chuckled to herself, remembering the time she had Delmar instruct Lysander to add too much salt to the soup or intentionally burn dinner. He sabotaged the food preparation without hesitation, taking the ire of the men for his poor cooking skills, even though he was following her orders. Aww. Then there was Delmar, who had also fallen to a wight. He was from the small town of Corsica and sent most of his pay to his ex-wife and children, hoping they would grow up better than he had. As long as she lived, Castile vowed to continue sending the 20 silver a month that Delmar used to. At first, she had suspected that Constantine had orchestrated Delmar's death, but after listening to the retelling of the combat and seeing Constantine's guilt, she decided he hadn't intentionally gotten Delmar killed. Delmar was an excellent swordsman, his sternness contrasting Adrian's congeniality with the men. She had been fortunate to have him in her service. The Empire had arrested Delmar with withholding artifacts obtained from delving, and he chose conscription over a decade of labor in the imperial quarries. She had helped him get the gambling Wait, what? She had helped him get his gambling problem under control. Oh. I was like, is she the reason why he had a gambling problem under control? And counted him as a friend and loyal subordinate. Her heart ached at the memory of young Felix and his infectious smile. Due to their sheer full personalities, she frequently paired new legionnaires with him and Matteo. Felix was from the northern coast, but she couldn't remember the name of his town because he always said it was too small to deserve one. Felix had no woman, but spoke fondly of his younger sister. Castile planned to write her a letter about Felix's bravery and send some coin to help her. Lucian, the horse master, was a good man and too decent a person to be forced into a soldier's life. She believed he had an illegitimate child somewhere. She would check with Adrian, who knew all the men's life stories. Lucian and Pavel had given their lives so that Benito and Lurkin had a chance to live. Pavel never spoke much about himself, but if there was a pious man in the company, it was him. He would have been much better as an acolyte of one of the gods. He had chosen to become a legionnaire rather than starve on the streets of the city where he was born. Soren and Cyrus were two of the more malicious men in her company. Both had killed men in anger and mostly confided in each other. She was not saddened by their loss, but they had been her responsibility, so she had failed them as well. If Adrian knew of any of their children, she would send them something. Finally, there was Remus, the red-haired man from Amphia, a sailor and foreigner from Gregor's company. He had been involved in a brawl at the Tella docks and ended up in chains. He was outspoken and, truth be told, a bit of an ass. 7 more names were added to the list of men she would have to answer for when she went to Pluto's realm for judgment. The list was getting much too long for her liking. Now 117. She sighed heavily. Wow. Her eyes turned back to the corridor where Legionnaire Eric had left. A real honest-to-goodness otherworlder. She was certain of it now. He had too much naivety and far too much unrealized power. He was the key to her potential freedom. If he lived long enough, perhaps she could convince him to join the Hounds and eventually get close enough to destroy or switch her blood samples in the archives. She kept nudging him in that direction, toward Constantine's circle, but it was probably reckless on her part. He did have the Dreamscape amulet, and she had never wanted to possess anything more in her life. Even though the created environment was a contrived fantasy, living in the Dreamscape was the first time she truly felt freedom and control over her fate. Resisting the urge to request it was difficult, and she waited for him to offer it again. The boy did not realize that once they reached the city, it would not be long before a first citizen confiscated the artifact. Adrian sat across from her, and they began reviewing the mental and physical health of the men. Most were healthy enough for a forced march. The question was whether they could get a head start on the summoner and reach a city in time. Rattling armor drew everyone's attention, and a scream echoed down the corridor. The swearing yell became clearer. The summoner is in the owlbear room. Everyone froze. Benito, Adrian barked, and the nimble legionnaire raced off to get others watching the Harpy and Earthdrake rooms. The company rapidly began packing their gear, readying themselves for the dungeon exodus. While the men prepared, Castile sent out her astral all-seeing eye to scout. The damnable dungeon forced her to use far more ether than she liked, just to send the scout down the corridors. If they were lucky, the owlbear would slow the summoner, but she doubted it. Her eye reached the room, and she swore. The summoner was walking behind the owlbear, and his line of sight was directed right at her astral eye. In Elvish, she ordered the owlbear to run. Castile snapped her vision back, her voice cutting the air with an order. Into the gate! Runic weapons lead! The summoner has controlled the owlbear. Clinking red-armored men scrambling forward into the exit portal. They disappeared rapidly, their numbers dwindling. The noise of the charging owlbear echoed through the room. She looked to Adrian, who was counting the men. Just missing Eric and the Goliath, he said. She turned and saw them a few dozen yards down the corridor. For a moment it looked like they might all make it before the owlbear, but fate had other plans. The hulking owlbear burst into the room, and Castile tried to slow it down. Her wispy ether chains snaked across the floor and wrapped around the red-eyed owlbear. They were no match for the creature's powerful frame. It tore through the shadow chains as if they were paper. The owlbear screeched a sharp, pierceful cry of challenge. Its glowing red eyes marked it as a dire owlbear, far stronger than the usual kind. Its body was saturated with ether, making it much more powerful. Eric entered from the far side of the portal, taking in the scene. He yelled at her. Get through the portal! Castile looked at the foolish young legionnaire. Maybe he had a plan, but she doubted even her entire company could have taken on a dire old owlbear. Maybe if they had time to ambush it, my voice is disappearing. Ah. And maybe he had a plan, but she doubted. Well, maybe if they had time to ambush it, and if one of the most powerful mages on the continent were not right behind it. Adrian stood next to Colm in front of her, ready to protect her from the owlbear's charge. She looked at Eric and nodded. Adrian, into the portal. Adrian hesitated, unwilling to leave Eric. Castile recalled that Eric had stood with him against the giant Eden, a man's foolish bravado. She yelled at him. Move! Eric will occupy it with his air shields and follow us. Castile stepped into the back Vale exit, Adrian called behind her. The grey light of early morning hit her. The tavern was a pile of rubble, and the invigorating, fresh cold air filled her lungs. The men were engaged with a handful of spectres. Constantine's blade flashed sparks as he got her attention. 9 spectres so far. Are you going to kettle them? His sword sparked against on another spectre. Castile needed to decide quickly. Form a defensive line around the exit. We will prepare for whatever emerges. Adrian added an order. Eric and the Goliath still have to exit. Identify your target before releasing your bow. Chaos ensued as Castile used the kettle to eliminate the spectres, and the men formed a line facing the dungeon. The body parts of dead legionnaires were scattered, staining the snow red. The men's feet packed the snow, and the spectres were finally dealt with. The Goliath stumbled out of the dungeon, holding his side. A large patch of his soft abdominal leather armor was missing, and his flesh was pale in the early light. He stumbled past the 4 men in the shield wall. Where's Eric? Matteo asked the Goliath as he passed his shield. Matteo slammed the bottom of his damaged body shield into the snow once the Goliath was safely behind him. The Goliath turned to face the oily black wall. He is coming. His deep voice informed the men while he held his side and drank a potion. Castile moved closer to speak quietly with him. What happened, Mavieth? She asked. Mavieth seemed to gouge his response, but Castile's impatience showed through. He whispered, The owlbear is dead, but the ice drake was rushing toward him. He will be victorious. He sounded as if he were trying to convince himself. Castile processed the news. The dire owlbear was dead. One less threat. She looked around at the men, weighing options. Adrian, get men over the wall. Clear an area on the other side, and I will use the kettle. Benito looked incredulous. What about Eric? Castile rebuked him a little too harshly. We will wait as long as we can for him. We are not going back into the dungeon to help him. Castile mused to herself that even if they tried, they would not find him in time to help. I will go look for him, Benito chirped, moving toward the oily wall. Adrian barked at him. Fool, you won't find him in time. He either exits soon or is lost to us. Castile remained focused on the kettle as they guarded the exit. Almost an hour passed before she looked at Adrian, and their eyes met in agreement. Adrian announced, Over the wall. We're leaving. Mavieth, who had been fidgety, questioned orders. We should wait longer. Castile shook her head sadly. We cannot wait. The summoner has most likely prevailed and is probably gathering dungeon creatures to exit ahead of him. Matteo laughed half-heartedly. Don't worry, we'll probably get to the city and find Eric already at the baths. A chorus of agreements followed, and Benito was already starting a betting pool of when Eric would reappear. Most likely, no one would collect on it, as the dungeon would likely claim his body, but Castile did not stop the banter. I'm going to look for him, the Goliath announced, pulling his hammer from his belt. Castile was about to berate the Goliath and order him to follow the company, but instead she slowly nodded. When you find him, tell him he should stop trying to play the hero. The Goliath nodded and disappeared into the black entrance. Everyone held their breath, but nothing happened. Adrian's voice broke the silence. Over the wall. I won't repeat myself. Packing down the snow and crossing the small plaza to the nearest standing house, they encountered numerous spectres emerging from the white banks. Constantine and Flavius led the way, holding most of the pack. A few men were struck, but nothing serious as they smashed the door and entered the ancient shop. Soon they were back in the Undercity. Constantine did a quick sweep before reporting. We should lay a false trail. That way leads back to the library, which would eventually lead to the city's outer walls. Adrian was nearby. If the summoner is following us, you should stop using the kettle. Let the spectres reform and slow him down, along with whatever creature he controls. Benito was within earshot. How will Eric and Mavieth follow then? Matteo pulled him aside to explain the reality. Castile agreed with the plan, putting away the kettle. They moved, using the hearth tree's roots to guide them. During a short rest, Constantine approached Castile to talk quietly. Flavius plans to report directly to the Legatus Legionis when he reached a city. Castile remained calm. Why? He thinks Eric is an otherworlder, and that you knew about it. He is also certain that the Renus' collector was in Eric's possession. He found multiple minor essences in the Goliath's bags. Constantine informed her, studying her for a reaction. When Castile did not respond, Constantine asked, "What do you want me to do about it?" "Kill him." Castile was unsure whether she could trust Constantine, knowing about his other loyalties. Flavius could put Castile in a compromising position and force another tribunal in front of the truth seekers. She looked Constantine in the eyes. His weathered face was expectant. Deciding that she could trust him, she said, "Do what needs to be done." He nodded and turned sharply. An hour later, Constantine came running from a side corridor he and Flavius had been exploring. "A room full of whites. They pulled Flavius in. Move before they realize there are more of us." Constantine moved to lead, pulling the company with him. Castile paused while the men rushed ahead, sending her all-seeing eye down the corridor. 2 turns later, she found Flavius's body, his throat slashed and a large pool of blood beneath him. His eyes were wide with shock. Damn it, Constantine. The city would turn the corpse. Flavius would become a spectre, or perhaps even a wight. A necromancer could commune with the undead if the Empire ever retook the city. A problem for another time. They soon took stairs up into a tower guardhouse in the wall. The company stood on the wall, looking back into the city behind them. The snow-covered buildings and the massive heart tree looked almost serene, but they knew the truth. Thousands of specters remained, guarding the city from outsiders for eternity. "We should be able to jump," Constantine's voice interrupted the moment. "The snow looks to be deeper than a man's height, and it's just 25 feet or so." He did not wait for Castile and jumped. Everyone looked over as he thudded into the snow and disappeared. He freed himself and started moving away from the city with his runic weapon drawn. Soon, the entire company was on the ground, pressing through the snow. Only 2 specters interrupted their progress. When they reached a copse of evergreens, they paused to look back at the city. It was just a bad memory now. Castile had only 12 men left, plus a scholar. Blaze noted a wyvern in the distant sky, but it looked to be keeping its distance from the city. "Do you think it's tied to the summoner?" Adrian asked from her right. "No, it's just circling in a lazy hunt," she replied. "Do you think Eric is alive?" he asked a moment later. Castile considered the question. "No," she said sadly. "Get the men moving. We will march north and try to reach the capital as quickly as possible." Adrian hesitated, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, consoling her. After the moment passed, he barked at the men. "I think you have rested long enough. 2 men up front breaking snow. Rotate every 10 minutes. The path north was difficult. It was miles before the snow depth finally eased, making the trek slightly easier. They camped near the river with no fires, huddling together for warmth. In the morning, they marched along the old trade road that paralleled the river. "Sail! River barge!" Willie announced from ahead. They managed to flag down the barge, which was loaded with soldiers. When it beached on the bank, the captain of the unit reported to Castile. "Mage Commander, we're headed to the eastern border. Do you need a ride?" "Hell yeah." Castile looked over at her men. They were exhausted and cold, and it was over 100 miles to the capital. The nearest city downriver was Parvis, but Count Coccus, Duke Octavian's second son, ruled the city. I'm sorry, what? Count Coccus? Still, they had a portal to the capital. "Yes, you can drop us off in Parvis, Captain." The men climbed aboard, relieved, and collapsed on the barge. The regular soldiers gave them a wide berth, and most of her men were asleep in no time. Castile settled on the barge as it broke away from the bank. She and Adrian moved to get news from the captain about what had happened during the past months. "Where have you been, Mage Commander? The entire continent is about to erupt in war. The Essenham elves have taken Amatalos Isle off the coast. Most likely, they'll invade the mainland soon. It's rumored that the Boughton orcs are also preparing a fleet. There are rumors of other nations mobilizing as well, but they don't hold much weight," the captain explained. Adrian was shocked. "Why?" "The city of the Titan, of course. Rumor is that Atlantium has been discovered in the swamps south of Matcha." Castile and Adrian made eye contact before settling down and pressing the captain for as much information as they could. Hours later, they drifted peacefully under a light breeze. The crisp air was warmed slightly by the water, but chunks of ice floated slowly by. The rushing water was a lullaby for most of the company. The serenity was broken as Benito began jumping at the front of the barge. There he is! That red dot has to be him! The company stirred, and everyone moved to the boat to see what had gotten Benito so excited. As the craft moved closer, a person in Legion armor was clearly walking on the high bank with a very tall person to the side. I don't think it's him. The armor looks to be in too good condition, Adrian whispered just to Castile. Castile did not wait. She sent out her eye and returned it to her body a moment later. It is him, Adrian. The boy survived again. I will believe it when I see it. What do you think happened to the summoner? He asked. I am assuming Eric killed him, she said flatly. Hello, Shane. Welcome into the last chapter. Happy to see you anyway. Oh, yeah. I can barely speak anymore. Blah, blah, blah. I'm assuming I killed him, yeah. Adrian turned to Castile, doubt in his face. The barge grounded on the bank, and the men swarmed the two figures. Castile let the reunion play out, failing to hide her own smile. One less person to add to her death roll, although his survival might cause more problems down the line. When things settled, Castile met Eric with Adrian at her side. She asked quietly, "The summoner?" "He won't be following us," Eric said flatly. Castile nodded slowly, relief flooding her face, but she did not press for details. Eric looked around the barge. "Where's Flavius?" Adrian answered. "Constantine said a white got him in the other city when they scouted our escape routes together." Eric seemed stunned at the news, as he should have been. Flavius was an experienced scout, and maybe she would one day tell him that his death was to protect his secrets. Castile exhaled a long breath. The Empire is at war. The S&M elves landed on Amatalhos Isle, breaking the peace treaty that had stood for centuries. Word is that the Boughton orcs are also pulling together a fleet. But no one knows where they will land once they sail. Adrian continued. Everyone is descending on the swamps south of Matcha. There are even rumors that the Emperor might leave his palace. Eric gawked in surprise. He stuttered slightly at the implication, worry in his voice. Are we headed back to Matcha then? Maybe we should have just stayed in the dungeon. It would have been safer. Castile could not hide her smirk, but she also feared what was to come. At least with a multinational war, no one would be focused on her small company. I won't know our orders until I report to the Legatus Legionis in Parvis. We do not dig in the rug. Nay. Forbidden. It was only half a day to Parvis, and the docks were full of soldiers and legionnaires. Adrian came back to report that the Legion Hall was packed and that the Legatus Legionis office was too busy to handle a report. The Italian Empire was always in a constant war footing, but this was different. Yawn, you did nothing wrong. The Italian Empire was always in a constant war footing, but this was different. The Empire was under threat and mobilizing for a long campaign. Adrian said heavily, "The Empire is pulling most of the soldiers from the western Agorian front. The forts along the swamp will be left with just skeleton forts. You can bet the trolls and troglodytes will take advantage. When all is said and done, you can expect the Empire to be much smaller." "Let's just focus on living to see the end of it, Adrian," Castile rebuked him. "Is the Count aware we are here?" "No. The portal opens at midnight to the capital. We should be able to leave the city before he learns you're here," Adrian replied hopefully. Come back. Just gonna stand on my foot. Hello? No. Good bed. Castile kept her company at the docks, but even then, okay. Soon, very soon, Constantine and Firth managed to wander off despite her orders. She realized both needed to report to their masters. They returned just in time to march to the central square and join the company through the portal. Arriving in the capital was different from usual. In their silvery armor, over 100 of the Emperor's legionnaires guarded the sunken plaza. Archers trained arrows on them before relaxing, seeing it was just wagons of supplies and a small mage company. Castile relaxed, relieved that no one was there to arrest her. She turned to Adrian and Eric. Get everyone to the Eastern Legion Hall. I will go and report directly to the Legatus Legionis office. Castile nervously made her way to the office. She had prepared a report while waiting in Parvis. All she needed to do was hand it over. The scroll detailed everything that had happened since they marched on Sorbol City. She had prepared it with the Imperial Truth Seekers in mind, confirming the details and answering questions before they could be asked. She waited in a lobby to be dismissed, but was then asked to wait in a small conference room an hour later. Maybe they were just busy and could not deal with her at the moment. Hours began to blend together. She asked for a runner to inform Adrian she was waiting, but her request was denied. Eventually, the door opened, and she was shocked to see Constantine enter. He was followed by a tall, older woman with graying black hair. Though Castile had never met Antonia Segredo, the merchant queen, she recognized her. A third person followed them in, Centurion Cornelius, commander of the Eastern Legion Hounds. The door shut with authority, and she guessed Constantine had betrayed her to his Praetorian master. What the fuck? Constantine moved to stand in one corner of the room, his face blank. Cornelius moved to another corner, his face wearing the deceptive smile of an old man. Antonia sat across from Castile and introduced herself. I am Antonia Segredo. I have been following your career since your time in the Mage College. Castile was on the defense. I am flattered. Why am I still here? Was my report incomplete? Antonia laughed. Incomplete? It reads like a tragic play. Most would think it's fiction, concocted for sympathy. She gestured to Constantine. He confirmed every word of it was true, and Firth reported the same to Cornelius. Castile's head snapped around to each person, trying to puzzle things out. Constantine, sensing her discomfort, tried to ease her fears. You are not in jeopardy, Castile. They just want to talk. Not in jeopardy yet, Antonia corrected her, her smile blossoming. But if I continue, you will be. The question is, do you want me to continue? What the fuck is this, a threat? Oi! Constantine looked irritated. Just tell her, Antonia. He faced Castile. They need you. They need your ability to unweave spell forms before someone can manifest their spells. She can do that? You're the only one who can do that. Do what they need. Castile was confused. Why do they need me to use my ability on? Who do they need me to use my ability on? Antonia looked at Constantine. I hate it when you disrupt my delivery. She turned back to Castile, her tone conversational. We need you on a special team. To help kill the Emperor. Ha! To kill the Emperor! Bro, what? What is this now? I mean, I'm all game. I'm full on game. But what? Okay. Castile should be happy about this, no? But she's gonna be like, this is a trick. End of book 3. Eric's adventures continue. Draft of book 4 titled The Hounds. Goblin. Wow. There's a bonus chapter at the end of this book. The winner of my first fanfiction contest. Please enjoy. Okay. Special thanks to the patrons. Yay! Here you are. This is you. Kirk. Shane Kirk. Pizza Ranger and the fucking Pope and Yoda. Baby Yoda. So many Sams. Sam. Bevers. Hell yeah. Okay. Okay, well, then we will read the fan fiction next time. Maybe do that as a separate video just for the fan fiction. Wow, okay. We finished book 3. What a fucking ending to it as well. Damn, we were in that labyrinth dungeon for a long ass time. Holy shit. Book 4, The Hounds. So now we're gonna go with the hounds and kill the Emperor, I guess. While there's a fucking full-scale war going on. Very interesting. Okay. Well, I'm extremely interested to start to read book 4. And we will do that next time. Holy shit. Okay. Good shit. No, I said shit. And good. She reacted. My bad. Okay, but that's all the time I have because she is a bit. I mean, now she's kind of chill and sleeping, but you know, she goes on and off. You know, we'll see if we can go on longer tomorrow. Oh, you're sleepy. But that's all we have for now. So let me cue Wawas. The Wawas. Thank you so much for joining, listening to the end of book 3. Crazy. Very good, very good. Happy to be out of the dungeon. Very interested to see what the hounds are up to. Apparently killing the Emperor, which is kind of sick. Not gonna lie. We'll see what we do tomorrow. Maybe we play something and read the fan fiction as well. Maybe that. We will see. We will see that tomorrow. Until then, yeah, please go follow me on places. Smooth says everywhere, links everywhere. Willow has now left the pillow. She wants to go outside. I will take her outside. Thanks so much for watching. Have a nice rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Hey do! Bye bye!